Welcome to Learning to Teach, Chapter 1. Let's look at our first slide. What's the student doing? Well, it looks like he just drew a picture of his favorite teacher. What would the drawing of your favorite teacher look like? What memories do you have of that teacher? Chapter 1 is going to be about teaching and learning. We will touch on characteristics that define effective teachers. Perhaps the teachers you've had in your mind's eye possess some of the characteristics we will describe as we move further into Chapter 1. Slide 2, this is the slide of the Young Harris Mission Statement. The three key words in this statement are educate, inspire, and to your brain, which is educate. Point to your heart, which is inspire. Finally, open your eyes if you were going to embrace someone, and that is empower. Now try that. Educate, heart to inspire, and arms open to embrace. Try that on your own. Make sure that nobody is watching you. Slide 3, it's the reflective monkey or the thinking monkey. And let's reflect on that YHC mission statement. How do teachers educate, inspire, and empower students to do their best? Did your favorite teacher educate, inspire, and empower you? Slide 4, is this good teaching? There's a clip there I'd like you to watch. Watch the clip and then answer the question. Do you think this clip illustrates good teaching? Why or why not? And the clip is a clip of Robin Williams, Dead Poets Society. When you post your response, post it on Moodle Forum 1 as Response 1, and your post should be about a paragraph in length. Include 3 or 4 ideas related to is it good teaching, why or why not. Slide 5 are the key themes from Chapter 1. These are the topics we'll be covering in this chapter. Why is it important to give you an idea of what we will be covering? Or why is it important for teachers to give students an idea of what they will be covering before they start their lessons? Some of the students are part to whole and some students are whole to part. How many of you like to see the big picture before you begin something? Is it helpful to see the top of the jigsaw puzzle box before you do the puzzle? In defining good teaching, we will explore what good teaching is and we'll look at the research conducted by Robert Marzano related to effective teaching. As we move around that circle, we're over about 2 o'clock. In the search for effective teaching, there have been 3 waves of research that have helped us define good teaching. This research has contributed to how we view teaching today. In Views of Teaching and Learning, right around the 4 o'clock position, we will learn about behaviorists and cognitivists. If you're a behaviorist, you're going to have one view of teaching and learning. If you are a cognitivist or constructivist, you will have another view. We will learn about both of these, and you may come to know which view you support. Text themes, which is around 7 o'clock, illustrates the fact that standards come in all forms and sizes. Accountability, diversity, and technology are other topics that will be covered in text themes. In Learning to Teach, right around the 9 o'clock position, we are going to learn about teaching as a knowledge base. What type of knowledge does a teacher need to have? This graphic hopefully will provide you with an overview of what we will be covering. Okay, slide 6. Our first topic is defining good teaching, and you're going to be asked to define good teaching and then be introduced to the components related to learning to teach. It'll be important for you to know each of these components, including elements of the teach and learn cycle or the pedagogical cycle. Teaching strategies will be introduced to you, and these strategies will be helpful as you begin to think about your education philosophy paper. Defining good teaching. The first part of our chapter deals with defining good teaching. In your mind's eye, capture the most effective teacher you've ever have had. In a brief paragraph, share 2 or 3 qualities that made your teacher effective and post. Is there a difference between effective, and favorite. Post that on Forum 1 as response 2. We go to slide 8. Post a response to Moodle Forum 1 as response 3. After you have posted your response, go to the next slide and see if your response correlated to the questions on the next slide. In this slide, on slide 8, would like you just to write a response to the paragraph to this question, what is good teaching? So as you respond on Moodle, talk about what is good teaching in a paragraph or so. And then move on to slide 9 and see if your response correlates to any of these questions. Slide 9, take the definition that you posted on Moodle from the previous slide, then apply these questions to your definition. For your test, you'll need to know these key questions. Notice the pants on fire icon, which means it probably will be on the test. So as you look at your definition, does your definition apply to teachers at other levels? Does your definition of good teaching apply to all types of learners, advanced learners, average learners, learners that may have special needs? Does your definition apply to teachers who teach other subjects? Or is it just related to the subject that you were thinking about? And number 4, does your definition apply to just certain times of the year, or could we apply that definition that you wrote to year long? Could we apply that throughout the school year? So think about that and make sure you're aware of those 4 questions. Slide 10, as you watch this clip, ask yourself whether this individual knows his subject matter. Does knowing your subject matter ensure effective teaching? After you watch the clip, respond whether or not what you saw depicted effective teaching, and then answer why or why not. Post this on Forum 1 as response 4. On slide 11, on page 19 in your text, there's a graphic that illustrates the components of learning to teach. We will examine each of these components, each of the components of this model in detail, beginning with knowledge of subject matter, which is on the bottom row of the model. Now, as we go through each component, it'll be helpful if you refer back to this model. Slide 12, we're going to begin talking about the knowledge of subject matter, which is, again, the foundation for that model in the previous slide. The first component is knowledge of subject matter. And when talking about knowledge, it is important to keep in mind that you cannot teach what you do not know. It is important to know your subject matter, no matter the grade level. Knowing your subject matter provides confidence in the lesson presentation. Knowledge of subject matter often helps a teacher to be more willing to ask questions of students. Often these questions can be high order in nature, such as how and why type questions, which can help stimulate thought among students. Without a firm knowledge of the subject matter, it's often difficult to ask questions relative to the content with which you are comfortable. In other words, if you don't have a good working knowledge of the subject matter, then it's very difficult to engage students in questions and meaningful questions that will help them better understand the subject matter. The better you understand your content, the more able and probably the more confidence you'll have in being able to ask questions that will engage students in a meaningful fashion. Slide 13, when thinking of knowledge of subject matter, being able to identify the big or core ideas related to the content is important. This chart illustrates the basic concept and core ideas relating to these concepts. Basic concept is to the left and the corresponding core idea is to the right. So if we take a look at the first basic concept, ecosystem, one core idea related to ecosystem is natural selection. If we talk about the composition of a picture in art, a core idea is the use of negative space. If we talk about the concept of offense and defense, if we're teaching sports, then spreading the offense, thus opening up the space for spreading the defense, thus opening up the space for offense, is a core concept. And if we're looking at cooking, then a core idea is minimize waste and increase taste by using scrap from stocks. So understanding subject matter, knowledge of subject matter, is important to understand not only the concepts, but also the core ideas that are related to that concept. Slide 14. Let's look at the second component of that model, and that component is pedagogical content knowledge. Now, when we talk about pedagogical content knowledge, we are talking about sharing content in ways that students can understand. When you saw the Ferris Bueller clip, did you think the teacher lacked pedagogical content knowledge? Notice at each level, elementary, middle, and high school, we may choose to teach concepts differently in order to match the developmental level of students' understanding. So at the left-hand side of that chart in your slide, you have the different levels. And on the right-hand side, we have different examples or different ways we might use to meet the developmental levels of students. Slide 15. There is a difference between pedagogical content knowledge and the pedagogical cycle. Read this slide and see if you can discern the difference. These terms can be confusing, but keep in mind that pedagogical content knowledge is being able to deliver the content to the level of the student which the pedagogical cycle deals with, and how that student and how that content will be delivered no matter the level. I have termed the pedagogical cycle as the teaching and learning cycle to help you distinguish between the two terms. Hopefully the difference between these two terms will be made clearer to you as you read this slide and the next. So on slide 15, read the slide over very carefully. Make sure you know the difference between pedagogical cycle and pedagogical content knowledge. Slide 16, there are 4 elements to the teaching and learning cycle, or the pedagogical cycle. These elements are structure, which provides direction to the lesson, questioning, response, and feedback. Structure, the first element, includes 3 moves or parts of a lesson. There is the beginning of the lesson, which includes the objective, review, motivation, and transition to the second part of the lesson, which is information sharing. Now, information sharing has to do with how information is delivered. During the second part of the lesson, we organize or chunk content so students can understand. We provide examples and we scaffold. Scaffolding is used when students do not understand a concept, and we back up to help students climb to a better understanding. Closure is when we end the lesson. We may use a practice activity or provide homework. The second element is questioning. Questions can be low or high order. Low order questions involve what, when, where, and are usually factual in nature. High order questions involve how and why and require more critical types of thinking. The third element is response. This is when students answer questions. When posing a question, teachers should pause 3 to 5 seconds. That's called wait time, so that students have time to process the question. Wait time is especially helpful to students who have learning difficulties and need more time to reflect on possible answers. The last element is feedback. This is how a teacher chooses to respond to an answer given by a student. As a teacher can praise, response, accept the response, remediate or correct or even criticize, but one must be careful in using criticism. So study this chart. It'll be important for you to know the elements and the key ideas related to this cycle. So as you look at the chart, left-hand side we have the elements, and on the right-hand side we have the key ideas related to each element. On slide 17, for more information on the pedagogical cycle, go to Resources in Chapter 1 on Moodle and click on the pedagogical cycle. You can also find this information in the Sadker supplemental text that was provided to you. On slide 18, knowledge of subject matter is the first component of learning to teach. Pedagogical content knowledge, or being able to teach at the level of the student, is the second component. Knowledge of teaching and learning, or the pedagogical cycle, is the third component. Teaching strategies, the fourth component, is defined as an interconnected set of teaching actions designed to accomplish goals. Teaching strategies can be thought of as research-based methods translated into teacher actions. Teaching strategies that are proven effective through research helps to ensure that instructional approaches teachers use will be effective under the right conditions. Slide 19. There are 4 key strategies that you should know. These include direct teaching, cooperative learning, mastery learning, and problem-based learning. Let's look at each strategy. And please note that these strategies will be helpful to you when you are working on your philosophy paper and will help to address this question: what instructional approaches do you plan to use in your classroom? This is a question that will be related to your teaching philosophy. So if you look at the slide, the left-hand side, we have the different strategies. And on the right-hand side, we have how they should be used and when they should be used, and a little bit of specific information relative to each strategy. For more information on teaching strategies cycle, go to the supplemental text pages 376 to 383 of your Sadker text. Slide 21. Decision-making involves the application of professional judgment in deciding when, where, how, and why to use the components of teaching. One estimate is that teachers make more than 800 decisions a day. Decision-making involves the application of professional judgment